Hi, everybody. It's Michelle Hill, your legacy builder at Winning Proof, and I am here with another episode of Winning Proof Unscripted. And today I have a very special person as my guest, and it's Dr. Robert Worthington. We're going to talk about the doctor part in a bit, but it's Dr. Robert Worthington. And I'm going to start out by reading his bio, and then I will greet Robert. How does that sound? Okay, so Dr. Robert Worthington is an author and entrepreneur who lives in Columbia, Maryland with his family. He has a professional background with more than 25 years of aviation experience, including stints of duty with the United States Air Force, Federal Aviation Administration, National Air Traffic Control Center, and numerous commercial service airports in the United States. He is a member of the State of Maryland Board of Airport Zoning Appeals, Salute National Veterans Honor Society, Walden University chapter, and has received various awards for leadership and support of youth sports. So, Robert, thank you for being on here. It's been a long journey, but I'm so glad you're here.
It has absolutely been a long journey, but it's been fantastic, and I've enjoyed every step of the way.
I'm so glad. Yeah, I have to say, Robert and I started his book journey in 2017, and
Right,
some life happened to Robert and his family. And so we had to put the book on hold until what, 2024, really.
right.
But
Like you said, life happens. My father passed away in that same year, and of course, the following year, COVID happened. So it was a journey to get back on task, to get back on focus on the book, and but it was certainly something that allowed me to deal with all of those circumstances that were happening, and it gave me an outlet to actually voice what I was thinking and what I was feeling, and put it all into developing and writing the book.
yeah, and the book is quite, to me, it's quite multifaceted. And I would hold up a copy. I don't have mine quite yet, but it's going to be here shortly. But Robert can hold it up. Yes. Look
Yes.
at that cover. It's a hold it up a little bit higher. Yeah. In My Brother's Shadow is the name of it. And you see the basketball player with the sun in the background and the silhouette, the whole thing. So great job on the graphic, on the cover design. It looks awesome.
Thank you, thank you. I thought it was very poignant and represented in itself exactly the story that we were telling in the book, and certainly and stuff. Great job with the guys who helped put that together and design it.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell a little bit about the impetus for writing the book. Why did you want to write it in the first place?
The book was a part of the journey as I was actually deciding. You get to that stage of life, and you're like, man, I lived this life, but what did I actually live? And I started thinking about the journey. I started thinking about things that was impactful for me. And when I started thinking about those, obviously your family's a part of that journey. But I thought about basketball. I thought about the impact and the influence of my brother. I thought about the tragedy that happened in our life that changed everything forever for us. And all those things intertwined with me writing a story that said, I want to focus on these things that shaped me to become the person that I became, what fueled my determination, where I was to the point where, I cannot fail in what I want to do. I had to pursue this journey, and I had to be dogged in my determination. Whatever obstacle puts in front of me or comes my way, I'm going to overcome it, and I'm going to achieve the goals I want for myself. One of those goals was determining to become a doctor, to achieve my doctoral degree, something I wanted to do for a very, very long time. And as you said, life happens. So sometimes it always seems like there's another thing in the way where you can't do it. And I was able to accomplish that.
And you are actually the first doctorate in your family, correct?
I am the first doctor in my family, and trust me, that sparked quite a few conversations. But most of them supportive, most of them, amazed, and I've gotten so many kudos and pat on the back from family members and questioning about it, and I always go back to the same thing: determination, focus, hard work. The book talks about all of those things, and that's what allowed me to achieve those things.
Yeah, and I remember talking to you, or you called me, I think, in the midst of getting that doctorate. And it was the point where I don't know if I can do this. I don't know. You were always determined. That was always a
Right.
thing, but you were right in the thick of it and you were
Right.
struggling.
For anyone who's actually taken in the doctoral journey, it challenges you to have the willpower to fight against the thought of I can't do this. I'm not going to be able to do it because it asks you what's your why. Why are you taking this journey? Why are you on this path? And if you don't have that figured out and why you want to do it, I don't know how you get through it. It's a very, very challenging process. But if you have your why, you know why you're on this journey, that's your North Star. And that's what you keep focusing towards and moving towards. And eventually, when you get to that point where you're walking across that stage on commencement and they call your name, and you know, once you walk on that stage and take those 20 or 25 steps to cross that stage, on the other side of it, you're a doctor. And that's the journey.
And yeah, that was so amazing. And I was able to watch that live, and I would just like my heart was just exploding with pride, for it's like, I know him. That's my client, and he did it. And I was just so excited for you. So, on the other side of it, and we're kind of getting ahead, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but what was that? uh, I guess, feeling of being on the other side of it, having doctor in front of your name and the doors that it will open for you.
It's like um, Bob Marley, the great musician Bob Marley once said, "You don't realize you're making history because you're living it."
Mm.
Um, and that very moment, the accomplishment crystallized, and I realized what I had achieved and what I had accomplished. I don't believe I thought about it much until that moment. I took the first step, and I was the next person in line to cross the stage. We were going to call your name, and you were going to start walking across. You get to the process, and going through the process is you take a stop, you wait, and the previous doctor, who's now a doctor, has who they've been hooded, flips your hood, and you become a hooded, and now you're officially doctor. It's your commencement. At that point, it was the first time I felt any type of butterflies. I actually felt the nerves of walking
Really?
across that stage. Prior to that point, I hadn't felt it. But it's also a feeling that I remember when you play in a big basketball game. You know, there are certain games, there are certain sporting events that, it's just another day at the office. But then there's those big games, and you get that little tingle in your stomach and that little nervousness. And as an athlete and a former coach and all those things, you look for those moments. You love those moments. You want those moments. So it was just fleeing, but it's a thing like, okay, this is big, and I've accomplished it. So you straighten your shoulders up, you put your head up, your chin up, and you walk across that and stuff in your moment and realize it's something that you achieved and you accomplished.
Yes, that's an awesome, and it is
It's
a
an awesome
big,
feeling.
big
It's an
achievement.
awesome feeling.
Yes.
Yeah, it's an awesome feeling.
Yeah.
Of course, I have my
So
family there to support me. So
that's awesome. Yeah. And you do have from what I've observed, you have a very supportive family behind you.
yes, and again, the journey challenges you with your family as well because it takes so much time away from you with your family. And at the time, as we just discussed earlier, my daughters were little girls, and it seemed like by the time I finished the book, I mean, they were about to graduate high school. And
Yeah.
the point of graduating high school and heading to college, I was graduating from a doctoral program, and it was all running at the same time. So when they got to go with me to be there at my commencement and to hug me, and I said thank you to them as well because they had to be so supportive and so understanding. Again, we're very close. I attend cheerleading events, junior ROTC step challenge contests. They were very active, excuse me, in school. So it was always that journey of always trying to be there and kind of like splitting the difference. Sometimes you can't be there because you have to be somewhere else. And I'm sure millions of parents have to deal with this all the time. But on a doctoral journey, it's especially challenging. And that accomplishment and stuff was very, very proud moment for me and my family, but also proud was both my daughters now have gone on to college and they're both in doctor programs now and they're pursuing their bachelor's pre-med studies and stuff. So my youngest actually told me, Dad, I'm going to get a doctorate as well. And I was like, great, the challenge has been thrown down. So I'm glad you accepted it. And I look forward to walking into your commencement.
Oh, that's so exciting. Yeah, and your accomplishment had to be so inspiring to them. Yeah, if dad can do it, I can do it
Exactly,
too.
exactly. Because of course, if dad doesn't know anything, so if he does it, I know I can do it. I'm like, keep that same energy in the process, and okay, accept the challenge, and they did, and they have. So, very proud of that.
Yeah, yeah, you have to be. So I want to backtrack a little bit
Mhm.
and talk about the the book's title, In My Brother's Shadow. So describe a little bit about the growing up years and what happened to to your family.
Sure. The title of the book was interesting. Obviously, you know the process of trying to work through trying to figure out a title that what actually works. And like I think you've said to me before, and I always kept it in the back of my mind, is that when you'll know it. When you get the title, you'll know it. And this was one of those things where I knew it, and it felt right because I wanted it to be synonymous with the relationship I share with my brother, but I also wanted it to be ambiguous because initially I felt my entire childhood growing up, he was the thing I inspired to be. I wanted to be a better student in school because my brother was such a great student. I wanted to be a better basketball player because he was one of the best basketball players at the park, and then went on to be a basketball player and star in school. And those are the things I wanted to achieve. Those things to me seemed very easily for him to achieve. Maybe, may not, but it seemed that way to me. Um, So I always focused on that. But at some point, after we grew up and the years passed and we went through our school years, and as we started pursuing into a young adulthood and then adulthood, the pendulum kind of swung. And it wasn't me looking up to him and following him. It was me surpassing those things. And therefore it changed from who was in whom's shadow. So at certain points of the book, you see me progress from being in my older brother's shadow to creating a shadow for him that now he may be in my shadow. That's emotional for me because you're supposed to look up to your big brother. They're supposed to be that driving force for you, and he was for many, many years for me. Um, but as you stated earlier, there was a tragic situation that happened my freshman year of college. Just left high school, had achieved some of the things I wanted. I'd become a basketball star. I earned a basketball scholarship. I played in a statewide uh, 101 basketball competition, which my brother was supposed to come see, and he actually missed the opportunity to be there for me. In my first year of college, um, signed a college basketball scholarship. I'm the starting two guard on the basketball team. And before I played in my first basketball game, I got the devastating news that my brother had been arrested and charged with murder. It changed everything for me, for my family, obviously for my brother. And it's something now that has been a cloud over us for nearly 40 years. It was a detrimental factor for me staying in college. And it impacted the health of my mother. It impacted all of our relationships. And it's something that I really never fully understood how impactful it was on me until I embarked on a journey of the book. It allowed me to express some of the things that I was conscious of and some of the things that I wasn't conscious of. I remember being in college and after my brother had been arrested, speaking with a parents of a young lady I was going to take out on a date, and I was picking her up one evening, and her parents, just matter of factly, we introduced, and they asked me, and they said, I introduced myself as Robert Worthington. They was like, Worthington, that name sounds so familiar, and they go, are you related to the guy that was arrested? I didn't think about it. I just answered the question, and I said, oh yes, he's my brother. But immediately after I answered the question, I felt the energy in the room change. I felt the step back. I felt the silence. I mean, what was happening, it went in my presence anyway, completely silent. I could not hear anything. The TV had lowered, and this is probably all just my perception, but it's how I felt. It was like this spotlight came on me, and it changed the momentum of, hey, we're gonna have a great time together. Do I really want this guy taking my daughter out? And I think I addressed that story in the book as well.
Mhm.
But it was one of those type things, or the fact that Shortly after that, I lost my scholarship because I wasn't academically completing the work I was supposed to complete. And I ended up leaving college and joining the Air Force, and just all the trajectories of my life changed. Prior to writing the book, I'd never thought about was my brother's arrest and charge of murder, what the role played in me not being able to complete college at that time and decision to leave and join the military. After writing the book, I thought that that probably had a profound impact on that decision, and at least the perception I was having of people staring at me, that I was no longer welcome into places I was welcome into previously, and I needed to get a way to start over.
Yeah, and I think people judge the entire family, as you're saying, because of one person and what,
Right.
what they are incarcerated for, whether
Right.
it's true or not, it's kind of irrelevant a little bit, but the whole family is judged,
Yeah,
correct?
and your own perception of it. I remember being in the lounge at the college, and when the news would come on and they would talk about the story on the news.
Mm.
I don't know what people in the lounge was thinking, but in my mind, they were all looking at me as the story came on the news, and I felt like it was something, and that confidence and that feeling of you're a basketball star, you're a college athlete, um, kind of waning away, and now I'm the brother of a person charged with murder. That persona became a bigger persona than a college basketball star.
Yeah, so it kind of changes your identity
It,
a
it,
little bit, or a lot maybe,
I
because
think
you're
it's changed
you
it a lot, right? And I
yeah.
don't know if I even realized that at the time in real time, other than I knew I felt that way, but I didn't know it was actually impacting my decisions and my choices.
Yes.
That was one of the things that working through writing the book helped me come back and realize that, you know what, that may have had a little bit more to do with it than I was able to even consciously be aware of at the time.
Okay, yeah, yeah. And I happen to know, and I will tell viewers too, that I'm in communication with Robert's brother via online prison mail email system. And one thing I have to say is he is a very gifted artist. In the past, when we did snail mail before JPay came to life, he would send me some sketches. Incredible. He is a very incredible, talented artist.
Very, very talented artist. Again, the arrest of him and the charge of this serious, serious crime was the first time he had ever encountered law enforcement in his life. He had never had a speeding ticket, a jaywalking ticket. He had never been in trouble before. So it was beyond shocking, beyond shocking.
Yeah. Now, does your family, may I ask, does your family have regular communication with your brother, and how is he doing?
Sure. Of course, my mom and my other siblings visit him more frequently than I do. I haven't had an in-person visit with him in quite a few years because I don't live in Florida. When I was in Florida, I would visit him um, pretty regularly, and he's moved around at different institutions, prison institutions in the state of Florida. But my mother, as her health has declined, visits in person less frequently now, but because of the technology, we've had video visits. I've had video visits with him, not in person visits. I got a letter from him yesterday. We've had phone calls, which the phone calls aren't very long, but you do get a chance to hear his voice and have a conversation. I've had phone calls with him. He has regular phone calls with my mom. And again, I got a letter from him yesterday, so we get letters.
Good.
And I know the JPay system has been revamped now, so I haven't gotten back onto that system. But we used to exchange uh, images and pictures through that system.
Yeah.
Now it's back to the letters and writing in an occasional video visit. So the families try to maintain some continuality of being there and visiting. But as you said, life happens. People move around, and with me not being in the state of Florida, I don't get a chance to visit as often. And my mom now has relocated as well, so the visits are less frequent in person. But we're hoping this year, 2025, which will be the 39th year of incarceration, that those visits happen outside of the prison system.
Yes, yes, that and that it will. take a whole family to re
Yeah,
what's the word? Uh, for the re-entry. I can't
yeah,
think of the word right now, but for re-entry into public life after being incarcerated for 39 years. And I'm talking about this because I've been in prison ministry for many years prior, and I've had a 40, probably almost a 40-year pen pal, friendship through prison fellowship. So that's why I'm asking these questions.
yeah.
But it takes a whole family to reincorporate that person into society because AI wasn't a thing. A lot of the conveniences
It's
that we
quite a
have
bit of convenience
today.
since they weren't a thing in 1984.
Yeah.
You know, in the letter he just wrote me, he actually addresses that, and we
Okay.
talked about that previously. But we've had these conversations about he's actually lived inside of prison under those conditions for twice as long as he was on this earth outside of prison.
Yeah.
So the adjustment to life, the adjustment to functioning around people, functioning around not having bars around you, not being locked somewhere, um, being a functioning adult with adult responsibilities is obviously going to be a challenge. And like you said, it's a challenge and stuff that it's not only for him, but us as a family to provide the support he's going to need to make that type of adjustment and adaptation. I think that's one of the reasons why in the book I address some of those resources that are available to families to where they can actually help their loved ones who may be in a similar situation and may be coming back home and just reintegrating themselves into society and adapting to being around their families. Because obviously none of us are perfect people, and they're not going to be perfect coming out of there. They're going to be actually probably quite flawed in dealing with regular life situations because they haven't had to deal with them in nearly 40 years, in our instance. So I put quite a few resources in there in the book and address those things in different chapters about the impact of having long-term incarceration, not only on the inmate that's in prison, but on the family dealing with it from the outside and the adjustments they're going to have to make when and if their loved ones are able to be released and come back home.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are programs out there. There are, a lot of times they can't get jobs because people will not hire a former felon or anything like that. And so there's programs that address that and address entrepreneurialism and maybe, help them build their own cottage industries.
Right. And
Just
and
being
that's the path
self-employed.
that we've talked about. That's the plan that
Yes.
we've already started planning was the entrepreneur part of it and stuff, in particular around his ability to be an artist. As
Yep.
I've told him and I've shared these with him, and it's if you go into a place like Florida and you're going to some of these, either Disney or um Hollywood studios, any of those type parks, there's always an artist out there doing drawings. Even in the airport settings and stuff, there's artists and
Yes.
stuff that are drawing sketches for people. So we've talked about him utilizing that talent to maybe get into that type of industry, even doing cartoonist drawings for the newspapers, where he's his own entrepreneur. He's selling himself as an independent contractor to these people that is buying his work on that type of talent. So certainly trying to address the point that there probably will be some challenges finding employment. So why not employ yourself?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So yeah, I really like that. And you kind of go into this I'm looking at your table of contents and the fourth quarter. I don't want to give away the book because the book is a memoir, it's a story, it's the whole story, and we're not going to tell the whole story because we want you to buy the book to read the whole story. And it is a gripping, fascinating read. And the fourth quarter, you have a journey of personal growth. You have no more excuses, taking responsibility for our choices. And what we've already talked about, basically, the invisible victims, exploring the impact of incarceration on families. So to go through that, that's chapters 10, 11, and 12. So what's the 11? No more excuses, taking responsibility for our choices. What is that all about?
a lot of it is actually speaking to a community which I grew up in, a community of African American that obviously have faced challenges that a lot of people have not faced, and therefore it may not relate to them. And although you have those challenges in front of you, you may have obstacles in front of you. You may have unfair circumstances, and in some contexts, we all have something we have to overcome. I would obviously, speak on the stuff that I'm more familiar with, my personal challenge, my personal relationships, my personal encounters and experiences, and overcoming challenges that sometimes we get to the point where they get so overwhelming that we just let those challenges become the excuse. I remember once that President Clinton had a quote that says, blaming others for your circumstances is self-defeating, even if you're right.
Mm.
Even if you're right. There can be obstacles put in front of you. And of course, we know the history of our country and the things that we've dealt with, people of color in this country. But there's still a way to get over those things. And my personal philosophy on getting over those obstacles is to always fly high. I'm always shooting really, really high because obstacles are always placed low. If you try to go low with those things, you're going to run into them or you're going to get tripped up by them. Try to shoot for higher. I'm going to go over top of them. They're not going to remove them. They're going to still be there, but I'm going to try to shoot over them. So therefore, no more excuses. And the obstacles may still be there. Those things need to be addressed in our education. As someone who's been involved in sports my whole life, I think it's a fantastic way to mimic and prepare children and young people for life. So I've volunteered and I've done school stuff, and whether it's basketball camps or basketball training or basketball leagues, I've also gone into the classrooms and mentored students about accomplishing things you want to accomplish. And not that you have to be super, super smart to accomplish those things. You just have to be willing to do a little bit more work. If you're not a great speller, then you got to study a little bit harder to spell those words correctly. If you're not a great reader, you may have to get some little help on your phonics to be able to sound out words better. If you're not great at mathematics, you have to understand the basic fundamental concepts of addition, subtraction, and division to get those more complex concepts in mathematics. Those are what I mean by no more excuses. Understanding sometimes when we're dealing with young people in school settings, and I think this is addressed in an interview in a book I had with a charter school founder and principal, about sometimes even our teachers have to be aware of the situations they're dealing with. You can get a kid that comes into your classroom, into your school, and he's rebelling against all of your rules and all the things you're asking them to do. And so many of us as educators and adults go, you know what, that kid has a bad attitude. If you go under the surface of that, this is a kid that's probably at home taking care of his younger siblings. He's in charge of everything. He's the rule maker in his environment at home. And then he comes to the school, he has to follow rules that he's not used to following. He's used to setting them. And therefore, it's not necessarily an attitude, it's an attitude adjustment. And that gets missed in a lot of occasions. And so we have to be able to look at those things. And in the totality of that, I kind of focus on all of that in the book. And I came up with the title, No More Excuses.
Yeah, and that reminds me what you were talking about the kid in the school and and all that. I love the movies with the classic movies with Sidney Poitier, To Sir with Love. And then there's a sequel to that as well, To Sir with Love, and I don't know if it's part two or whatever. But I love those because like you said, you have to get under the surface. And
Yes,
this kid just isn't incorrigible for no reason. There
right.
there are underlying reasons. So yeah, I really like that. So I want to address the as we kind of wind down a little bit, you have endorsements from biggies. I'll go call them Cameron Whitmore, NBA player for Houston Rockets, Roy Jones Jr., heavyweight boxer. How do you, what is your network like? How do you know these people? And, how have you connected with people? And Brian Rousum, I will mention him as well. And there's a host of others. But how have you connected with these people and how have they been influential in your life?
Right. Again, if we get into that chapter of journeys and achievement, through sports, through building a network of sports, from being an athlete, transitioning to becoming a coach, to running basketball camps. I've encountered some of the people you just mentioned. And the thing about meeting people that you may see on TV and you may, see them in the NBA, Roy Jones Jr. in the boxing ring, and he's one of the goats of boxing, and Nate Tiny Archibald dealing with a Hall of Fame or a top 50
Yes.
player of all times, and Brian Rowson, a great athlete, a great humanitarian, a great friend. Um, all those relationships were probably built through the network of basketball,
Mm.
but they became personal friends. And the thing that has been so profound for me in dealing with those people is the foundation of relationship is friendship, not stardom or Hall of Famer or all time great. And they're all those things. But the greatest thing to me with each of those men we just mentioned is that they're even better people. They're willing to help. I've called them at occasions about doing things to help kids or even families or coming to an event that they're not going to make any money on, and they don't probably necessarily need the money, but they're coming because they want to help people, and they've always answered the call. They've always participated. They've always been generous with their time and their advice. As you mentioned, Nate Tiny Archibald wrote the forward to the book.
Yes.
Um, and I've had so many conversations with him, less over the past few years, but for years, just sitting in and having these conversations with him and talking about things that, as I was a kid growing up, I would see on the TV about the NBA, and I would ask him about these different things, and he would always take the time to answer the questions for me. Brian Rowson is like such a good friend, almost a brotherly type. Roy Jones Jr., one of the all-time great boxers, and as I've said to him, not only one of the goats in the boxing ring, but an even better human being, a great person. Cam Whitmore is just starting his professional career. He's a young man that I'm very, very close with his family. I talk to his father, if not daily, weekly. I started training him as a youth basketball player in the eighth grade. His father sought me out, and he loved the connection I had with basketball at every level, plus the military background. He wanted that discipline for his kid and the training expertise as well. And we met in a gym, did one session, and that turned out to be 5 years or 7 years of training going forward until he ended up signing a basketball scholarship to go to Villanova University. And then from there on to the NBA, now currently with the Houston Rockets, where he's a budding NBA star as a second-year player in the NBA. Great young man, tremendous family. And again, I've been fortunate to have those relationships. And again, it's built through the network of basketball, but built on the foundation of friendship, honesty, and trust, and knowing that not only are they great athletes, they're even better human beings. And that's what is the foundation of our relationship.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome to have a solid network like that. So I have three more questions for you, and then we'll wrap up. But
Okay.
one is, what did you, during the course of writing this book, this memoir, what did you learn about yourself in the process?
Oh, okay. Well, the first thing I learned was actually how to write a book, and I have to say this now. I should have said this at the beginning, but I don't think I could have completed this journey without your help and your patience, Michelle. I came into this journey and this process not knowing anything at all about writing, and as I was just speaking about those other people and about their friendship, our business relationship from being a consultant on my book project, uh, transformed into a friendship. And I've come to you with not just help on publishing a book, but on how do I proceed about writing the book. So you not only consult on me getting the book published and writing the book, you help me learn how to write a book. So that process of going through it was not only self-discovery of myself, but it was finding a friend and someone that's probably going to be a lifelong friend. And I'm eternally grateful for that process, that help, and the relationship. Um, but it helped me learn about myself. I tried to be a consistent person. I tried to be a person of character, um, and um, and I think that came out in the book. I talked to people about it. I actually recently went to a class reunion in September for my high school class reunion, and people I hadn't seen in decades were there. And of course, they were learning about the book and about the doctoral journey. And of course, you want to talk about those things. And going so and being there, my old high school, Maiden Evans High School, in Orlando, Florida, had timing of a basketball 50-year reunion from 1974 to 2024. And any and all the players who were part of that process of playing on the boys or girls basketball team, cheerleaders, coaches, managers, all those people were invited back to attend that event. And when I got there, I encountered some of my coaches who obviously have aged over the years, and we laughed and reminisced about different things. Some of the players I knew, some of them I did not know, some of them I played with and were former teammates of mine. I enjoyed the communication, the connection. But there were two other players that came to that event. One from West Orange High School, the other one from Boone High School, and they weren't members of that 74 to 2024 alumni. They were opponents of mine that I played against in basketball that I hadn't spoken with and seen in decades. And they came to that event because they knew I was going to be there and they wanted to come speak to me. And I talked to one of them. And as I was having a conversation with Cliff and we was talking, he goes, "Look, I'm going to buy your book for my sons. I want them to read the stories that you're going to tell in this book because you were a bad man. And I remembered you, but not only did I remember you on the basketball court, I remembered you off the basketball court. I just wanted to come over and I just wanted to see you." That meant a lot
Yeah.
because that's what I was trying to do. I was driven to be a good basketball player, but I didn't want that to lose who I was as a person. I wanted to be a good person and to have someone that I hadn't seen in decades tell me, "This is who you are," meant a lot. The other person, and I talk to him quite often, and it's mentioned in the book, is a guy named Lenny Grace. He's mentioned in the book because he was a rivalry on the basketball team. And I tell him to this day, they stole our state basketball championship. And he laughs about that and like, "Yeah, you need to get therapy for that," because we had played them a number of times during the basketball season, and we beat them every time. Three out of three times in a row we had beaten them, and the fourth time they upset us and beat us and went on to win the state championship. So I always tell them that that's our state championship. We were a better basketball team than you guys. So he didn't attend my school. He wasn't in that alumni, that group of those 40 years, but he came to the event because he wanted to come talk to me, and we had a great conversation. We ended up going to lunch afterwards, and he remembered telling me that not only did he admire me as a person and he could not wait to read the book, he reminisced about the time he was in junior high school with my brother. And he said, "Man, I used to sit on the bench and watch your brother play. He was the best basketball player in Orlando. He was
Wow.
the best basketball player in Orlando." And I nodded my head and approved that. No, I agreed. I thought he was as well. And just connecting with people like that and having them tell you these are their thoughts of you, and you hadn't seen them in so many years, let you know that, hey, I know I was trying to do this, but to get confirmation decades later from people that you really haven't spoken with and seen in a decade or so, makes you feel good. It makes you feel like, okay, I've not only accomplished the things in the classroom of completing a doctoral journey or on the basketball court, but I've been a good person, and that was important.
Yeah, and my observation of you in relaying those stories too is that you have self-confidence. You have a lot of self-confidence, but you're also humble. And you don't take those and let them, expand your head to where it can't fit in the room. Have a very humble attitude about yourself or a demeanor where you take those and yeah, oh my gosh, they mean so much to have people like that just come to you. That's really meaningful, but you just embrace it and you're so thankful for that because
Right.
that really accomplishes your goal of what kind of person you have always strived to be.
Right. That's been, and that's what I've, again, going back to the original question, that's what I was hoping to find out for myself about myself, and with validation through family, friends, old coaches, old opponents. They've all said, "Hey, hands up to you, clap on the back. You're a good guy," and that's what I wanted to accomplish and achieve, and I think I've done that, and to probably last and sum this up for you. Um, my mother was interviewed for the book as well, and she recants some different stories in the book and some things she got emotional about. And my mom's lifelong best friend, we affectionately call her Aunt Shirley. She's not our auntie by blood, but she's my mom's best friend. And, she lived right next door to us in the early years. And we grew up calling her Aunt Shirley. And she's always been Aunt Shirley. And my mom told me recently a story that she had with him. Like, okay, we're waiting to get the book. We got to get our book. You're going to send me an autographed copy. And Aunt Shirley said she wants an autographed copy, but she wants to buy one as well because she wants to support you. And she goes, I was just telling her, and again, this is in the book. My nickname is Tan, and all my family members call me Tan. So I rarely ever hear Robert when I'm talking to anybody that's, from my early childhood into my family. So Aunt Shirley my mom was telling her how proud she was of me, of my accomplishments, things I've done, and that she just goes, and I was telling Aunt Shirley that Tan has just been awesome. And she said, Aunt Shirley replied to that was, well, I always knew he would be. I
Oh,
probably hadn't seen Aunt Shirley since I was 17, 18 years of age.
wow.
So,
Wow.
yeah.
That's awesome. And I know your nickname has always been Tan and Williams has been Weo.
We are, yes, yes.
So I like those nicknames. So, and I remember also before my next question is I remember at the very beginning in 2017, I got to talk to your mom. And after talking to her, I asked her, would you be my mama? Because she was just so
Yeah,
kind and just so, had such a loving demeanor.
yes. That's been her demeanor our entire life. I can't tell you, and I think I may have gone into it in the book a little bit, how many times some of the neighborhood kids became our neighborhood live-in friends because
Mhm.
they would need a place to stay in and they would need help. And my mom would always be that help. She would always be that mother for the community wherever we lived.
Yeah, I could see that just from a brief conversation with her. She has that welcoming, warm, loving, caring personality. So I am thankful, for that as well. Now, what do you want when readers of your book, everybody who buys it, what do you want them to, I would say, think, feel, or do when they read that last page?
I want them to reflect on their family, on their relationships, whether it's your mother, father, brother, sister, cousin, best friend. We never know when we're never going to see that person again. We never get a chance to touch them again. And for me, that happened on a Friday night driving to a basketball game with my brother, and I dropped him off at someone's house and saying, okay, you know what, I'm going to talk with him on Saturday. And I had never had a chance, at least from that point forward, 18 to now nearly 40 years later, I've never had a chance to speak with him as a free person since that time. It's been nearly 40 years. Never in my wildest imagination that I think something like that could happen. So we're dealing with our loved ones, our friends, the people in our inner circle and our connections. Value them, respect them, and enjoy the time you have with them. You never know when it may not happen again. So I want people to take away from the book that relationships, have all types of different antennas and they extend in a lot of different ways for all of us. But they also extend from our hearts, and we have to hold on to them as long as we can.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you buy the book and you will find out all that and you definitely. So
I've gotten some feedback.
yeah, how can people connect with you on social media?
Right. A lot of my social media, I think I have Instagram, I have Facebook, I have, I guess, TikTok is X now. A lot of those accounts are under my mantra of hoops, drills for skills. It's my basketball camp business. I think I do have an Instagram account now, the Dr. R. Worth.
Yeah. And you
But
have a LinkedIn account
I
as
have a
well.
LinkedIn account as well. The basketball in my brothershadow.com website has all those links. So anyone, if you go to the in my brother shadow website, you'll be able to find the link to the all of my other social media accounts. They can be found there. You could follow me there. I do respond to all of my inquiries or messages directly. I don't have a team for that. I like the personal interaction and conversations. So if you reach out to me, you have my word, I will get back to you.
That's awesome. And we'll include all the links in the show notes. So everybody will have all
Okay.
your social media links and whatever. And we'll put the website in mybrothershadow.com and in there and everything. So any parting words, Robert?
Just thank you for your time and your efforts, Michelle. And again, thank you to your audience for listening and being a part of this journey. I really appreciate everyone and all that has come with this process. I look forward to having conversations and more meetings and interactions with them. We have book signings coming up and other podcasts. So I'm looking forward to engaging with the audience. And again, thank you all for your time.
Thank you so much. And you are awesome.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you.
In every way. Yeah, we have, like we said, 2017. So this is a
Yes,
several year,
yes.
what's turned into being a friendship and a friendship with William as well on JP and the whole thing. So I applaud you. You are a stellar human being, and I'm thankful that you took your time today to just sit and talk for a while.
It was my pleasure. It was my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you everybody for watching this episode. And until next time, I said, which will be really soon, watch out for another episode of Winning Proof Unscripted.